On this episode, we chat with journalist and communications expert Amy Lefevre about work culture in Bangkok.
So if you've ever worked or want to work in Bangkok, you'll find a lot of good information on this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 and is trying to learn to finally appreciate Thai massage by rolling around on sharp rocks on the ground.
That's fairly accurate. And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 22 years ago, fell in love with putting my life in the hands of some random Thai guy on a motorbike, so I never left.
That's a good one, right? You know what freaks me out more is when you're standing there waiting in the at the Win, the queue,
Sure.
And then some random dude on a motorcycle pulls up and he's not wearing a jacket.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh,
So
and then
he's
he's like one of their buddies, and they're like, "Hey, yeah, you can just go."
Yeah.
They're like, "You can go with him."
Yeah. So you get on his bike and you're like, "Did I just get kidnapped? What's going on?"
I'm with you.
Who is this guy?
It's already sketchy enough, right?
Yeah.
No. Pretty much every day, I put my hands in. I put my life in the hands of some. As I said, some random Thai guy. But no, I've had no problems so far. So I tip my hat to random Thai guys. We want to say a quick thank you to one of our patrons, Kun Cat, who supports us at the show shout-out level. Stick around after our conversation on working in Thailand with Woman About Town, Amy Lefevre, to hear why Kun Cat may just get us to finally start a TikTok channel. We want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get an ad-free regular show a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads-up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons like Kat also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about the difficulty of being a small-scale farmer in Thailand, some interesting changes to Thai laws regarding abortion, and the difficulty of getting a second-hand iPad at Fortune Town, to say the least. To learn how to become a patron, click the support button at the top of our website.
But the secondhand iPad is sitting on your hot little lap, so I guess it was success.
Eventually a success, a worthy story, nonetheless, yeah.
It was a pretty funny story. Yeah. And always, if you have a comment, a show idea, or just want to say hi, head to BangkokPodcast.com and click the little microphone button on the bottom right to leave us a voicemail we can play on the show. All right. Well, in this episode, we talked to someone that I've known on Twitter for a very long time, a young lady by the name of Amy Lefevre. Now, Amy has had an interesting career. She started out as a television news anchor and then moved into journalism, where she worked for Reuters, winning several awards for her work. After that, she moved into the corporate world, working with some of the biggest names in digital media and online content, which for various reasons will remain nameless. So in her years based in Bangkok, she has worked all over the region and has had the opportunity to work in Singapore and other places, but has always come back to Bangkok. So I thought it'd be fun to chat with Amy about her work and in particular, what it's like to work in Bangkok, falling in with the various tribes or cliques, be it teachers or journalists or CEOs, and what some of the noobs that are looking to head to Bangkok post-COVID can learn about starting their new careers in this crazy city we call home. So here is my conversation with our friend Amy Lefevre. All right, well, we are chatting with one of the few guests of the Bangkok Podcast who has had three full names, is known by three full names, and I, of course, I'm talking about Amy Sawite Lefevre. Oh, I screwed it up already. Amy, welcome to the Bangkok Podcast.
Thank you so much, Greg. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, it's good to talk to you because your name is a name I've seen around in the expat circles for years. We've probably got two handfuls of common friends together, but I don't think we've ever met in real life. So it's cool to be chatting online now.
Yeah, same. I know you, you know me, or we know of each other, and we seem to move in similar circles. So yeah, it's super cool to be on the show.
Yeah, our reputations precede us. Now, I thought it'd be cool to talk with you because you're kind of in a unique place and you've got some unique stories to tell. And I thought it would be particularly apropos, to use a word I don't really understand, right now, because as Thailand is starting to open up again, fingers crossed it sticks, I'm getting some emails, some messages, some tweets from people all over the world who are sort of ready to come back to Thailand and really want to come back to Thailand. Some of our patrons on our Discord server are asking us this question. People want to come here, and a lot of them want to work. And I thought it would be cool to talk to you about sort of this and adjacent topics, because you've got a kind of an interesting history with work here. You've worked in a lot of different fields, and you have a unique and interesting perspective on, I don't know, I guess how people can fit in Thailand and work, and why Thailand of all places. Obviously, I'm rambling now, but what do you think about this topic? Is it something that you think you can give me some insight into?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I definitely have had a very unique experience in the sense that I've, been here over a decade. I've worked for Thai companies as well as, very, very large international organizations.
Hmm.
And I think in my particular case, it's been a combination of things. It's been a combination of, being in the right place at the right time, luck, just sheer sort of, work your butt off kind of ethics as well. But I've seen in my own circle of friends and people that I've known for the longest time in Bangkok, they've had a very different trajectory to me. And, I think Bangkok is just one of those very interesting places where, at least in my experience, for expats, you're either, you know, your company kind of either moves you here and then you may or may not have a trailing partner or trailing spouse.
Right.
Or if you're lucky, you may end up finding something while you're here. But I think the latter is very, very rare. And so in my particular case, when I came here 10 plus years ago, my very first gig was actually at a local television station, which is now folded.
Oh
Now
yeah.
no longer exists. um, but that cable TV station was on True, and I think for that particular first gig, I was incredibly lucky because there I was a Lukrung, a half Thai person with a master's from the UK, which was very, very important, or I
Ooh.
felt was very, very important at the time. um, and obviously the dual language thing, which we can talk about a little bit later as well, if you're interested in that. But there are a lot of factors that have got to come into play, I think, to set you up for a successful work life in Bangkok.
Yeah, you're right. And the dual language thing is interesting because, I've had a similar kind of experience to you. I've worked as a journalist slash writer. I hesitate to call myself a journalist. I've worked for big companies, small companies, Thai companies, international companies. But the one thing that I found that as a foreigner in Thailand who doesn't speak Thai, you're always fighting against, is there's a million Thai people who can do exactly the thing you can do, and they can speak English and Thai.
Yes.
you know
Yes.
so I've found that to be really hard, and from time to time I get letters from guys they want to come here and work in accounting, or they want to do law, and I'm basically tell them, like, unless you've got like a really niche specialty, then you're going to be swimming upstream, because it's hard to compete against that.
Yeah, no, totally. I think it's really hard. And you're competing, as you say, Greg, like against the local market. And quite frankly, people who are probably, prepared. I mean, things are changing, I think, quite quickly, but people who were prepared to, let's be honest, be paid a lot less than you are, um, and do the same thing. So a lot of different factors at play there. But having said that, if you do get that like wonderful expat package, which again, few and far between these days, anecdotally, I've heard from a lot of friends that, hey, like, companies are no longer giving you that whole package of like, the car, the driver,
Right, right, right.
the school fee. Yeah, like those jobs, I think in the 80s and 90s, yeah, like they were definitely one part of the allure of living in Bangkok. But, nowadays, I think the level, the playing field has leveled out a lot more. And so if you're coming here and as an expatriate, you probably do still get perks, but probably not the shiny ones that you would have had, say, like 10, 20 years ago. So.
Yeah, especially when each kid costs like $1 million a year to put in a top international school. Imagine
Exactly.
every company except the most giant ones are like, nope, not going to do
We're
that
not going to
anymore.
do that. Exactly. That's good. That's what's going to make people leave Bangkok, the school fees.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. No kidding. And you've got two kids. I've only got one. So, I mean, you know that more than I do.
Yeah.
Um, so let me talk about the types of jobs you can get here for a second, because you've got lots of experience with different types of industries. I find it funny that I think a lot of people think that you can kind of fall into like 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 sort of barrels when you land in Thailand for the job. You can be a teacher. You can be like an expat, like a fat expat salary package, like you mentioned. You can be like an IT person, because some big IT companies are here, or you can be like maybe a digital nomad, I guess. But am I wrong? But it seems like it'd be really challenging to get a job sort of outside of those fairly narrow definitions.
No, I think you're actually spot on. I mean, obviously, we're kind of talking in cliches a little bit here, but
Hmm.
you know, back in the day when I was a journalist, I remember when my friends and I went out, when my colleagues and I went out, or with my partner, we would definitely move in packs, and we still do to some extent. There would be the media pack, the Southeast Asia reporters, the freelancers. I'm talking about like sort of the journalism world here, and then there'd be the English teachers, and then
Right.
NGO workers slash diplomats, because I kind of bunched them in the same sort of group.
Mm.
And then it was, that was kind of it really in terms of the people that we would certainly meet. Um, and I think that if you are an NGO worker, or if you work with the United Nations, or even if you work in media, Thailand is a great Southeast Asia hub, or even an Asia hub, full stop.
Yeah.
Um, I've heard from friends at the UN that Bangkok is just like a really coveted post. Some
I
people have
bet.
described it as, you know, one friend recently described it as resort living.
Yeah.
So it's definitely somewhere that people want to come, and it's not one of those hardship posts. But then again, now that I'm in the corporate world, and I'm in my late 30s, I would say looking to move to that mid or upper stage of a person's career, that's when you realize those tribes are kind of limiting. Um,
Mm.
because I realize that Thailand can be a really tough place if you want to do something that isn't UN, INGOs, media, and if you are brave enough to be, as you say, like a digital nomad, or maybe you want to, you have your own startup that you want to try in Bangkok. I don't know many of those people, but I think it's really slim pickings compared to, say, a Singapore or a Hong Kong. If you want to work, for example, in fintech, or just in
Right.
tech in general. So yeah, I would definitely say that while those tribes are a little bit of a generalization in a way, they do still kind of ring true when it comes to Bangkok.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point that you brought up, because I've had arguments to and fro on this over the years about whether Bangkok is a good place to be if you actually want to progress up whatever ladder you're on, be it the corporate ladder or the teaching ladder, or like the higher education ladder or whatever. Some people say no, Bangkok is what you do when you're young and you want to blow off some steam and you have some fun, and then when you want to crack down, you go back home. Other people are like, no, I'm in here for the long haul. I want to get some good experience. So I don't really know. It does seem like Bangkok's a bit more of a place for younger people to have a bit of fun, versus someone who's, say, 30, 35, 40 and wants to crack down and advance their career. I don't know if that's possible in a lot of different industries outside of, being very happily employed with a Thai company, say.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think it is possible. It's just much harder than, say, other Southeast Asia hubs, like I said, Singapore. And I think you are right. I think, at least I can only speak for, what my circle of friends have shared with me or what I've seen over the past decade or so. But people come here early 20s, mid 20s. It's such a fantastic life in Thailand. It really
Yeah.
is. You and I know that. It's just amazing. You can work, you can party, you can get your work experience in. And, it's such a big country compared to, like I said, Singapore, that you can really sort of travel and make the most out of it. And then you creep up to your late 20s, early 30s. And what I've certainly seen amongst our circle of friends is either they move back home to their, wherever they're from, whether it's Canada, US, UK, Australia, or they do sort of gun for the big sort of financial hubs in Asia, like
Right.
Hong
Hong
Kong or
Kong,
Singapore. Yeah.
Singapore. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because, then it's sort of like the serious phase of their life. And then, the Bangkok party days are kind of, put on ice for a while. So, um, yeah, I would definitely say that it is a pattern that I've seen over the years. And it's such a shame because, and I think you and I talked about this in some of our earlier conversations as well. I think there's so much missed potential in terms of who Bangkok could attract and the way that it's positioned itself as a working hub as well. And I think, it's almost there, but there are various factors that sort of make it really tough to work here. Visas being one of
Yeah.
them. Getting a working visa. So yeah.
Yeah, this is something that I've always been fascinated by, and you've had experience here because you used to work as a journalist and you've worked in the corporate world, so in different countries, so you've seen sort of what the competition is like in other places. I've just kind of focused on staying in Thailand, so I don't really know, but I've always said that Bangkok is. Well, obviously, we love Bangkok. We're happy being here. You're half Thai, but it's got so much potential that it's missing out on because when you look at it, places like Singapore, which Bangkok dearly wants to be, um and like you said, in terms of visas and staying long term, like I had a friend in town the other day, my friend Vinny, who listens to the show, and I was explaining to him, like, if I got fired from my job today,
Yeah.
on paper, I'd be in the exact same status as you who
Yes.
got here last week and me who've been
Yeah.
here 20 years. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing, there's no difference between us,
Yeah.
And I feel
Exactly.
like there's so much bureaucracy and red tape and needless holdups and restrictions and tripwires that it's just a shame. I look at it and I'm like, man, it could be just, you could be raking in the money from special visas, raking in the money from the digital nomad lifestyle if you just cater to it and nurtured it.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, like, I haven't had to go through the pain that you and others may have had to go through in terms of like the paperwork and stuff because I'm working here on a Thai passport.
Mm,
Um, but my partner certainly has. I know my dad struggled even though he's married to a Thai woman. So I've certainly seen how that red tape bureaucracy can really hold hold people back. But not only that, I think, we were talking about like the sort of mid 20s cohort and then people who are kind of like creeping up to their 30s and stuff. The other thing I've seen is, when people start having young families, and they do sort of decide to move to, sort of the Singapores of this world,
mm.
the first thing that I say to them is like, "Oh, well, why did you do that?" And the first thing they say to me is, "Oh, well, it's safe and it's clean and there's lots of green spaces." And now that I'm a mother myself, I definitely feel the green spaces bit about Bangkok because I just
Yeah.
think, I just think the city could do so much more. And I know they're trying. I know there's amazing new parks popping up, and obviously there's a green lung of Bangkok, and there's, and I think, someone out there from the BMA is definitely trying.
Yeah.
But still, I can see the appeal of, say, a more manicured, uh, city with more open spaces and green areas for families.
Right. And it's funny, we're obviously talking about Singapore. But I came back from a trip to Singapore recently, and I talked on it on a show after I got back. And I basically said Singapore is what Bangkok dreams about when it closes its eyes and touches itself. But, and I also came to the conclusion that Singapore is like is like the icon Siam of Asia. And I'm not, maybe I'm not making my point right, but when you're young and running around Bangkok, you're like, oh, more malls, boo. But then you have a kid and you're like, man, these malls, man, they're air conditioned, they're
Give me
safe.
all the AC.
Yeah, they're predictable, they're close, I
Yeah.
can take my kid there and be there for half the day easy. So at a certain age you do reach that sort of your desires and your needs and your wants shift, and you start looking at Singapore more like, yeah, that'd be a bit more predictability would be would be nice for a change.
Yeah. Yeah.
um
Totally. Mhm.
and following on that, you've worked here for a long time and you've had the opportunity to work in Singapore, haven't you? But you've chosen to stay in Thailand.
Yes, yes. So first of all, I hope that so far it doesn't sound like this has been a competition between Singapore and Bangkok, or Thailand for that matter, because, I think Thailand wins. Joking. Um, but so after I left journalism, I was actually approached to work at Facebook, now Meta. And the original job offer I got at Meta was a regional role based in Singapore. And I thought, I really want to do this role. I just don't want to, you know, I love the life we have in Bangkok. I just don't want to go to Singapore. And that was actually my first sort of trial, I guess, my first attempt at saying to a big corporate, would you mind, like, I really want to work with you. You really want to work with me. Would you mind if you just base me out of Bangkok? And
Ah.
it's sort of, yeah, and it's sort of one of those things where it's like, if you don't ask, you'll never know.
Hmm.
And if you don't ask, you certainly won't get. And so I tried my luck. It was a bit of a gamble because I did really want to go and work with them. And, I had a lovely manager at Facebook at the time, and she said, yeah, no problem. We'll base you out of Bangkok and you can still do your role.
Cool.
And then in the next gig, the next corporate gig I went to, which is the one I have now, it's a similar situation happened. And again, a lovely manager said, absolutely no problem. You can totally stay in Bangkok and we're confident you can do the job from there. And so that's all great. But again, it's sort of like, why do I have to ask for that? Why can't there be more of these lovely regional jobs in Bangkok is my question. Unless you've created something for yourself in Bangkok, you've made a thing of it for yourself. Yeah, I do think it's quite hard to have sort of a ready job description and role handed to you that's based in the city.
Right. That's an interesting way to think about it. I think you also need to be a bit resourceful because I don't think any life here is going to fit into a cookie cutter shape. Like it's always going to have a little thing glommed onto the side, or it's going to be a bit strange, or you're going to be doing something slightly outside your comfort zone, you
Yeah.
know? But I think that's all, it's a double-edged sword. It's part of what makes Bangkok cool because you never know what you're going to get, but it's also what makes it a little bit risky because you never know if you're going to end up over your head, you know?
But that's what I love about Bangkok, the grit, the unpredictability, like all of
Right.
those things that some other cities in this region may not have. So yeah.
Right. Now, I will
Yeah.
say though, like I'm not overly educated, and I don't, I'm not trained up to a high degree of specialization or anything like a lot of people are. But I think really one of the reasons why I've lasted so long in Bangkok is um, a small part of it is just resourcefulness. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll do that. Sure, I can try. And then you go home and learn how to do that. The other part is just it's who you know. It's making friends. And for a long time, I've said that you don't make friends in Bangkok. You make allies. You
Yes.
make contacts. You
Yes.
know.
What do you mean by that? I mean, I agree with you, but like would love to know what you mean by that because
Well, I
I
mean,
think I know. Yeah.
there have been many times in the past where I've had no shame in going to my friends and saying, "Hey, I'm in a bind, be it with a job or a visa or whatever. I need some help. Do you know anyone?" I'm like, yeah. More times than not, they're like, yeah, I go talk to this guy, or oh yeah, my friend can help you out there. You
Yeah,
know, like
it's so
our
true.
listeners know, because I did a show on it. I worked for Agoda for a long time, and I got laid off along with a lot of people at the beginning of COVID. And I got a really nice job after that I'm really enjoying and I'm liking a lot. But I got it simply because someone told me about its existence. Like, it wasn't advertised. I wasn't looking at job ads or something like that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's just networking, and Thailand's not unique in that regard, but it's something that is really, really important.
I think that's so true. It's so true. And now that you've said that, I mean, not just job wise, although I have to say, so two of my jobs have come from word of mouth for sure. They were not advertised jobs.
Right.
But when I see gigs or when someone tells me about a gig these days, it's still sort of in the journalism world, whether it's sort of like proofreading or, copy editing or something like that.
Mhm.
I tend to throw it to the people that I have known in Bangkok for the longest time, sort of my first batch of friends in the journalism world, because we've kind of supported each other, for the longest time. And so, yeah, I think it's true. But I was going to say it's also true about housing. I don't know what your experience has been, Greg, but every single place that I have lived in Bangkok that I've thoroughly enjoyed has not been listed. It's not been
Fascinating.
advertised. It's not been through an estate agent. It's been like, hey, I know about this place. It's sort of tucked away in the old part of Bangkok. Not many people know about it. It looks like nothing from the front, but it's like paradise inside. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, and then once you're in there, you're only going to really tell people about these secret places if you really, really trust them not to kind of spread the word too much. So
Right.
I think that's the other really enjoyable part of Bangkok. There's still so much, even now, I think, and particularly after COVID, there's so many sort of nooks and crannies to explore about the city. And I think there's this sort of like, you've got to have earned it kind of thing about it, which I think is really fun and fascinating at the same time.
That's interesting. The you yeah, oh man, this makes me think of a show that Ed and I did a while ago. I think what we said was, you have to earn Bangkok.
Mhm.
It's really hard just to show up here off the boat like, hey, how's it going? And then, just sort of fall into something. You need to hack your way through the jungle a little bit.
And this
Um,
also reminds me of your this also reminds me of your blog, where I think someone had asked you to disclose like secret drinking spots or something, or like your secret uh what is it, sort of hangouts or restaurants, and you basically did a good job of giving nothing away. It's like,
like,
no, no,
yeah,
no,
you can go to this.
you have to have earned that.
Yeah, no doubt. That's the same way I did, right? It's like telling a magic trick. Like,
Yeah.
no, man, you got to put in the work. You need to earn that.
Yeah. I'm not going to give all my tricks away.
I forgot about my blog. I haven't updated that in about 2 years. It's because I put all my effort into the show. Um, well, as we're wrapping up here, then, so like, when someone is looking at Thailand for a place to come and work, and if they have one of these tribes that we talked about, all right, sure, it's great. But what if they don't? Would you, like, if one of your friends was asking you, should I come to Bangkok and try to find a job? What would you say?
I mean, yes, absolutely. I still believe that this is the place to immerse yourself in, I mean, Southeast Asia definitely, but Asia as a whole as well. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then you can go and try your Hong Kongs and your Singapores and your,
Right.
but sort of on a more practical level, what I would say to them is, it's better if you come here with a gig.
Oh
Um,
yeah. And you mean
most
a
people.
job? You mean a job, not like a side girlfriend?
Yeah, not a side girlfriend, not a geek, but an actual like come with a job that pays you.
Yeah.
um, yeah, definitely. Or you could come with a gig as well.
Whatever
Um,
floats your boat. It's Bangkok, right?
yeah, exactly. Whatever you want to come with. But no, definitely come if you can with something, or at least a signed contract. And I'm in a couple of these sort of, and I'm sure you are as well, sort of like expat forums on Facebook and on other social media channels. And
Mm.
I really feel for, I see a lot of these comments like, I followed my partner here and, how do I get a job here? And it's like, well, probably best if you had figured that out before you come, because it's, as we just said, like throughout this whole show, it's quite difficult to get something once you're here. So
So
yeah,
I think I totally agree with you. Like, if you're going to move here without anything, without a safety net, without knowing what your next step is, be prepared to, to hack your way through that jungle. It's
yeah,
always easier to come here with something, but that's a little bit less fun, a little bit less edgy, a little bit less risky, a little bit less sexy. I don't know, but
what would your advice be? Would you tell people to what would you do?
yeah, it depends on the person too. Like, I've got lots of friends who've come to Bangkok and they hate it. They're like, I got to get the hell out of here. This place is awful. And yeah, I'm like, yeah, right. It's not for everyone. I get it. But other friends I have who are as resourceful or more resourceful than me, and who are that kind of person that'll get out and pump hands and make a network real quick. Like, those people will probably be okay, but
Yeah,
others won't. So I think it really depends on the person.
you do have to be quite resilient
Yeah,
to live
exactly.
here.
Yeah. Well, Amy, thanks for coming on the show and chatting. It was interesting to get your experience because, like I said, you've been here a long time and you've got these sort of both sides of the coin history with these different worlds, and a lot of different tribes, like we said. So it's interesting to watch what tribe people will settle into when they come here.
Yeah.
And I'm just glad it's not like the vocational schools where the tribes are fighting. Can you imagine like a group of journalists fighting like a group of high school teachers or something?
I mean, I have to say, I may have seen that happen. I may, so back in the days when Nana was still like, still a thing, and street drinking was still a thing. Yeah,
Oh God.
no, I'm joking. No, I think it's a pretty harmonious, PAX.
Yeah, Pax. I like it. I like it. Well, last question then before I go, I would like to get your insights into Thai media too, because I wasn't a journalist, I was a writer. I created that existence out of sheer force of will and annoying people until they paid me to write them something. But what is the state of Thai media right now? Like, is it a good place to be writing about things? I mean, things here are always a little bit on edge, but what do journalists in Thailand think right now?
Mm, yeah. Well, first of all, you are a great writer.
Oh,
According to, I have read bits of your blog. I know you just said you haven't updated in a while, but I find your writing very, very quite funny
oh,
and good.
thank you.
Um,
I blush.
so despite the lack of training, um, listen, I'll be completely honest. Like, I have tapped in and out of the Thai and international journalism worlds for the past 2 years, but I can certainly sort of um, speak broadly and from my experience a few years ago. Um, I think the state of Thai media, the main thing, as you all know, is media censorship.
Yeah.
There is self censorship, as well as, of course, state censorship. And I don't think in that regard things have improved that much. In fact, they've probably kind of gotten worse in some areas. Um, I think people on the streets are as brave as ever. The students who were protesting a couple of months and years ago. But I think apart from a few individual Thai reporters and outlets, it's very, very difficult to be courageous here as a media professional, unless you have, say, like I did, the backing of a large international news organization. But even then, you're not immune.
Hmm.
So I think that's kind of the tragedy, in a way, of Thai media. Um, it's just that I know I have met, there are brave voices out there. I've been to newsrooms or independent news outlets that, some people may not even know about because they don't write for the mainstream press. And they are out there trying to do investigative journalism, for example. But like I said, it's very difficult to be brave when it's kind of like you could get thrown into jail for
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've done shows about this too, about self censorship, and there's lots of things we'd love to talk about, but we know that it's just not gonna it's
It's
just
not
not
worth
gonna
the
fly.
risk.
We've got too
Yeah.
much to lose, right? I got my
Yeah.
family here.
Yeah.
And people
Exactly.
people sometimes say like, "Oh, you're a sellout, you're a hack, you're not fighting the power." I'm like, okay, well, sure,
You've
okay,
got to choose your battles, right?
exactly, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Well, Amy, thanks for coming on the show. It's cool to get your insights into these kind of things. And listeners, if you're thinking of coming to Thailand for long term, you know, just take our advice, do your research, look into it, and realize that it might be best to have something before you get here, and be prepared for a slog if you don't. That's really all I can say.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Amy. I'll talk to you soon.
First, let me say I'm very jealous of her just because of her variety of work experience. Dude, even though I've been here more than 20 years, I basically have had two main jobs. Now, I have worked some various side gigs, but really in 20 years, I worked for one company for about 7 years, and now I've been at my university for basically 15. So I didn't do that kind of, I came here a little bit older. I didn't do that, like jump around 1 year here doing this, 2 years, 3 years here. I mean, I should have worked 8 jobs by now, but I've basically worked 2.
Oh, that's interesting. I've worked like 8 jobs, so yeah, I'm in that camp. But I guess it's good. It gives you a level of stability here. But is there any downsides? Like, I would say that it also doesn't give you a broad sort of familiarity with the job market here, which can be helpful, I guess, in some ways. That's
right. I mean, obviously, I chose to do it, and I do enjoy it. I'm not complaining about my situation, but I do when I hear someone like Amy or even you, and you talk about, I did this for 2 years. I did this. Plus, after you've been here, 10, 15, 20 years, you have a lot of stories to tell. And I have friends like you or Amy who will just say like, oh yeah, for 2 years I did this, and I'm like, oh really? Holy shit! Like, when did you do that? And they're like, oh yeah, that was that was like 2008 to 2010. Like, I don't really have that kind of backstory like you guys have.
Right. It's interesting. I have the same thing with apartments. I've only lived in 4 places in 21 years.
Oh wow, okay.
In Bangkok, whereas other people seem to move every year.
Right.
But yeah, it's cool, and I like that we got into talking about these cliques you fall into, because of course when you move to a new city, you find your level, right? You get talk with someone at work, or you find someone you got something in common with, and then their friends become your friends.
Sure, of course.
And that's how your crew builds. Sure. But there are cliques that run around. Like, for my first few years, all my friends were teachers, just like I was.
Right.
And then
sure.
When I was a freelance writer, a lot of my friends were also writers or journalists,
sure.
because a lot of the teachers I was with went home. So, it's interesting how you sort of bounce around to these different bubbles.
Definitely.
Depending on what job you're working.
The other cool thing is that she's really worked a variety of jobs. So she's been kind of in the more straight kind of corporate world, but also, to me, some journalist jobs can be kind of corporate, but my experience with journalists is it's pretty chill. It's not like the uptight kind of corporate world. Right. So I think it's not just that she's worked many jobs, but she seems to have experienced different cultures.
Yeah, right. And all of this, like I said in the intro, is especially relevant now, because we're getting, not a lot, but every once in a while we'll get some emails from a listener who is now post-COVID thinking of finally getting the move to Bangkok underway.
Sure.
And they want to come here, and they have questions about what job to get and where to find employment, and how do I do this and how do I do that. So there's people who are looking to come here and start working. So it's an interesting discussion.
It's funny you brought that up, because I never know what to say to these people, although I want to be helpful. I want to give advice, but my particular jobs, I feel, have been so random that I don't know what advice to give people. So I think the best thing we can do is just talk about our experiences, like Amy did, or you did, or I do. Like, I don't know. Do you have answers? Like, sometimes we get, especially since I teach at a university, I get messages from listeners who say, like, Ed, do you have any advice for coming to Bangkok and, to be a professor or a lecturer? And I always struggled to give specific advice, because the way I ended up with my gig was fairly random. It just happened to work out, so I've been there so long. But I don't know. What do you feel like you have specific job advice to give people?
No, man. In terms of jobs, I always just say make friends, shake hands, go to events, meet people.
Right.
And something will fall into place.
Yeah.
It's funny, though, because I did get an email from a listener a few days ago, and they were saying, hey, I'm coming to Bangkok. Do you have any suggestions on where to rent like a short-term
I saw that.
Condo, not Airbnb.
Right.
Yeah, but like a short-term condo. And I was like, no, I don't know anything about that, because I never need a short-term condo.
Yeah. It's strange.
So I don't know.
Yeah, it's strange. As long-term residents, we do have knowledge that a lot of newbies do not have. Like, there's no doubt we know stuff. Like, we have learned something.
Right.
We have learned something. But then there's a lot of these specific things that if you and I have never encountered that or never had to do that, then I just don't know. Like my situation, just a random example. When I came to Thailand, I had a job with a Thai company, so I never had to do visa runs ever. And but it's such a common thing among expats that but so I'll get people who ask me about visa runs. What's the best company, or where should I go? Should I go to Cambodia? Should I go to Burma? And I'm like I don't know. And they look astounded because I'm a long-term I'm a long-term expat. I'm the co-host of the Bangkok podcast, and they're like, you don't know any, they're like, you don't know anything about visa runs. Like, to them, that's Bangkok 101, and it is.
Sure, yeah,
it is. Like, a visa runs, that's Bangkok 101. But I just missed it, or I skipped it, so I just don't know anything about that. I don't.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've for like over a decade now, I've worked for BOI companies.
That's right. Yeah.
So I don't need to go to Chiang Watana.
Right. You're out of that loop. You're just out of that loop.
Yeah,
right?
I never went to Chiang Watana until very recently. So yeah, some people are like, "What? You've never been there?"
Yeah, you're like Chiang Watana? Chiang
Exactly.
Chiang what?
Zing.
Chiang Watana?
But thanks Amy for coming on and chatting. It was a cool conversation, and to everyone who's thinking of moving here and living here and working here, it can be done, and it's very interesting and very rewarding and very cool. But you got to know how the machine works.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, I think Amy's a good example. You got to keep an open mind. You got to be flexible and be willing to try different things, because I don't think it's the same as back home. Just the job market is just different.
And always remember to put your height, weight, and religion on your CV.
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's get into some love, loathe, or live with, where one of us picks a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we discuss and decide if it's something that we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept as something that we just have to learn to live with no matter how we feel about it. Now, last time we did a Would You Rather about Western country music versus Thai country music, so this week I'm going to do a LLOLW. And Ed, I'm going to keep it real simple this time.
Alrighty.
I think we may have done this in previous seasons or maybe with Evo, but I'm not sure. But I happen to be drinking some of this right now, and I want to get your thoughts on Sang Som.
I got to go thumbs down. And I'm not a snob when it comes to anything to do with drinking. I'm trying to become a snob when it comes to cannabis. I'm working hard on becoming a weed connoisseur. But actually, when it comes to wine or booze, I've never developed that attitude of I've got very particular tastes. But let me say this: I don't like Sang Som. So it's just like I just want to defend myself and say I'm not some kind of snob. I must have a single malt from this region of Scotland. Like, I'm not like that. I'm not that kind of guy at all. But I never got into the cheap Thai rums and whiskeys. I know they're very common and very popular, and I guess they, I realize they serve a purpose. So if you want a very cheap drink, and especially if you're going to mix it with something, then I guess it doesn't matter. So I guess you can defend it from the standpoint of, hey, I just want something really cheap that does the job. So I get that, right. Man, I don't know. I'm coming from a non-snob. I got to say, I never got into it. What's your take?
I love it. I think it's great stuff.
Oh my God!
I don't.
Dear Lord. Dear Lord.
I don't drink it a lot, but every time I do, I think it's great.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think you can't go wrong for the price point. You can buy it at 7-Eleven. I think it's good.
Well, okay. I mean, to me, that is the defense. The defense of Sang Som is the price point. That's it. To me, that's the price. that is the defense. But man, I think there's other options that are that taste a lot better. But more power to you, man. So I think you can defend Sang Som from that standpoint. It's just cheap. Mix it with something. Get it over with. It gets the job done. maybe that's the best attitude.
I like it. I think I've told the story before, but when my friend came to Thailand before I did, and he brought back a bottle of Sang Som in Canada, and we tried it, and we were like, "Oh my God, this is gourmet stuff!"
I love it.
Yeah, we were all so impressed. So
ignorance is bliss, as they say.
All right, you drink wine, I'll drink Sang Som. The end result will be the same. You and me puking our guts out in the corner.
Okay, so as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, we'd like to say thank you to Kun Cat for lending us her support at the show shout-out level. Greg, what did you find out about Kun Cat?
Well, Kat got in touch with us, and she has a pretty cool story, actually. She says, I'm a fan of your show based in Texas, which is the Alberta of America.
Correct.
Or, you can switch it around and say that I live in the Texas of Canada
right.
or whatever. But she said, I was actually born and raised in Bangkok, but I left in 2007 to pursue my MBA, and I just never went back. So she's like the opposite of you and me.
Right, sure.
Yeah, so she said, to reconnect with my own culture, I started teaching Thai on TikTok. And I don't have a TikTok account, Ed, and I don't think you do.
I do. I never
You do?
I only created one so I could watch other TikToks, but I've never posted a thing. Same as Instagram. I've never posted anything on Instagram or TikTok, but I do have a TikTok account.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, seeing how Kat uses TikTok, maybe we should start a Bangkok Podcast TikTok channel. But because
I'm in. I want to do it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll think about it because Kat on TikTok. Check this out. Her TikTok handle is Kat Talks Thai, and that's TOKS, not TALKS. Kat Talks Thai.
Yeah. That's
She says, I'm not a teacher in real life, but I was teaching what I knew. To my surprise, there was a huge base that was hungry for Thai content, and I've been able to grow my following to 277,000 users in almost 2 years.
That's insane.
That's huge. I wish we had a fraction of that listening to this show. So
right.
Now I cover all things Thai, from language, culture, lakon, songs, and food. I have some followers from Thailand, but the majority of my followers are from other countries.
Cool.
Yeah. So I went to her page, and of course we'll have a link in the show notes. And she's got some really cool short videos where she talks about Thai language and teaches people idioms and the proper pronunciation and the wrong pronunciation. So everyone check that out because it's really fun and it's a cool way to learn about Thai.
Yeah, you just told me about her right before the show, and I checked out her TikTok. It's very cool.
Yeah, she does a great job. She says, I learned about the Bangkok podcast because one of my followers told me about you guys. I've been loving your show because it reminds me of everything I've missed over the last 15 years, but I also love getting your perspective on everything too, especially love, loathe, or live with.
Well, maybe we can get a Kun Cat to let us know what she thinks about saying so.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe make a video and say something about here's how you pronounce the Bangkok podcast. And Kat, you send it out to your 277,000 followers.
Yeah, just
give us a little boost.
Yeah, if you could just happen to mention on the side about the Bangkok podcast to your million listeners, that'd be great.
Sure, just looking at the camera. Oh, hello. Oh, I'm just drinking some Sangsom. My friends at the Bangkok podcast really love Sangsom, or at least one of them does.
That works for me. Anyway, thank you, Kat.
Yeah, thank you. And everyone check that out. Kat Talks Thai. It's some great stuff.
All right, a final thanks to our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping support the show. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
That's right. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. You can send us a voicemail through our website that will feature on the show, or even reach out to me directly on Twitter where I am BKK Greg. So thanks for listening, everyone. Take it easy out there. Stay safe, and we'll see you back here next week.
For sure.